Hi everyone, I'm Allie. Join me as I show you how to do 6 different strand styles for this growing vine bracelet. It is going to be using a Claspgarten clasp. We have 3 loops here, but we're doing 6 strands, and again, each strand is different. If you need any materials like all of these lovely flower collections that are used in the bracelet, go ahead and look below the video in the description. We'll put the links there to get all of the collections, which will be amazing, whether or not you want to do something that's a nautical theme, a sports theme, just really fun ways to connect all of these bracelets. Look below the video. The description there has the links back to our site. Gather up your materials and let's get started. So to start this video, I just want to show you kind of the messy bead mat to begin with. I had 4 different of my floral collections, flower collections with the primrose and the bead caps and all different ones here, the boho flower mix. And what I did is I picked out some colors that I wanted to use in the design. I have 2 11-0 seed beads here and 1 8-0 seed bead, along with some silver and just a bright yellow bicone and a 4mm to kind of make these pop. I am going to be using crystal size 8 dragon thread, and I have a size 10 needle on my thread, and I have a 3-strand clasp that we are going to be making into a 6-strand. So it has 3 loops, but we're going to do 6 strands with all of our flowers. For springtime, for summer, I like to go bold with my jewelry. I tend to wear a lot of black and like to go really bold with the jewelry. So my plan is we're going to do 6 strands, each with a little bit of a difference in it, mixing together all of these different beautiful colors of these check glass leaf collections. They're going to be mixed up to look like a floral garden that we get ready to put on our Claspgarten clasp. I'm going to begin with the first strand of it. So I'm going to clear this off a little bit. And I have, again, that size 10 needle, and I have a stop bead at the end of my needle. This is a bead that is not going to be on my project that I am going to take off, but we're going to be using the thread because I like the flow of it. I am, again, using that size 8 because I like the thickness of that for the basic beading. If you have beading wire and you would rather, or cable, and you would rather use some crimp tubes, you can certainly do that as well. Either form is going to work. Again, I like the flow of the thread and needle. So I'm going to go ahead and get out my first strand, and I'm going to start from the center of the piece and kind of work my way back. I'm going to string them all, do the center strand, and then keep working. One thing to keep in mind with the cluster bracelet is that it is going to be a little bit tighter as they all kind of fall on top of one another. So as you're creating and building, make sure that you can make the bracelet a little bit bigger than normal. That is usually quite helpful. I'm just taking out flowers at random that I like from this collection, and I'm going to then start my stringing. This one, the first one that I'm going to do is just a basic stringing with a pattern. And then we're going to add some leaves in with our seed beads as well. So you can see I'm just kind of taking out a little bit of each selection, and then we'll get ready to get stringing. So I have my garden of beads out here, and I love the look, and that gave me a chance to say, okay, what other colors do I want to bring in from some of my collection? I grabbed some blue, which I originally didn't have out, and some red to make it pop. And I have that stop bead on, and the first thing we're going to do is just a basic strung strand. I'm going to show you how I attach to the clasp, and then we're going to go from there. So I'm going to do at the beginning and the end of every single strand an 8-0 seed bead. This one is just that matte, pretty silver lined emerald. And then I'm going to go in and use a couple of my seed beads. Picking up at random to add some of that color pop, I'm going to go ahead and pick up some of my beads. I don't want the beads to be too big at the end, but I also don't want it to be really small at the end near my clasp and then not be big. So I'm going to go with one of the medium sized flowers first, and kind of spin it around to find my hole, sew through. And remember, this one's just a basic stringing, so I won't take too long on this. I'm going to use 3 silver line beads in between, followed by an 8-0, and then we're going to go in, and here's one of my blue flower caps. The blue flower caps are going to sit around my silver bead. I'm going to cap it on the other side with a blue as well, going into my green, and then 2 of my green seed beads again. And see how I'm just going to string my garden to begin with, bringing in then some bright colors and kind of doing a variety of those. Whoops, I want to do a big bead next to it. 2 to 3 seed beads in between each are a good kind of rule of thumb. If you want to do each one where one strand is one style of bead, one strand is another, you can certainly do that if you don't like the free form flow of it. but I'm just going to go through now and finish this first primary strand, which is going to go attached to the middle, and I'm going to show you how. All right, so we have our first center row here, and you can see kind of that little garden created. I'm going to go through the center of my clasp loop, and you can take this apart if you want to, that you have the tongue apart. It's up to you. I'm not going to do anything right here to reinforce because we're going to reinforce the whole strand. What I am going to do here is go back through the 8-0 seed bead that my thread was coming out of. So I'm going to pull that tight. We're coming out the 8-0. And once again, then we're going to add 2 seed beads to kind of separate that out and make it sit not right up next to the edge. I'm going to change up the design this time, and I'm going to use some more of my 8-0 seed beads to make that center a little bit thick, and then use some of the beads, but we're also going to create some leaves. So I have 2 11-0 seed beads on here. We're going to bring this down a little bit, push this up a little bit so you can see more what's going on. And I have my 3 11-0 or 8-0 seed beads. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 of my green color. Then I'm going to grab another one of the green, but the other color, that metallic color. 1, 2, 3 beads again. That last 8-0 seed bead, we are going to loop back through it. So coming in from the opposite side, looping back through. That's going to create a little loop here. That's going to look like a leaf. You see me kind of pulling it down towards the end. I'm going to go back through those first 3 silver-lined green beads, skip over that middle bead, go back down through the 3 on the opposite side. What that's going to do, and this is just a tiny leaf. You can go in and you can make them whatever size you want. I'm going to skip over that 11 right now, kind of push it to the top, and see how you get a little leaf shape. It creates that little bit of a point. We'll make some bigger leaves as we go along, but then I'm going back through that 8-0 again, putting on another 8-0 seed bead, and then we're going to put on an 11-0 and the first one of our flowers. Now, as we progress, we want to make sure that we are not going in and getting it too much of the same color right next to one another. So this one, I have a red one there, so I don't want to put a red one here. I'll put a red one further into the design. So here at the end, I have to decide kind of how I'm going to add and what I'm going to add to this color. So let's do a nice bright, bold pop there. I'm going to do another 2 seed beads before, and then the 8-0. And see how that leaf just kind of hangs out there. I'm going to do another 8-0, 1 15-0. And then 1 and 2 8s. I'm going to do another one of my leaves. So going in and doing, let's do 4 this time. 4 of our silver lined, followed by 1 of our metallic, followed by 4 more silver lined. Coming out that 8-0 seed bead, you're going to go back through the 8-0 from the first towards and up through that second one that your thread is currently coming out of. Push it down next to your project. Go back up through the seed beads along the side, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Push the thread down, pull it tight. Skip over that 11-0 in the metallic color in the middle. Go back down through the 4 along the edges here of that silver line. Watch that pop to the top. Back through the 8-0 seed bead that your thread was originally coming out of to make that leaf. And then grab another 8. If you don't like how it's sitting kind of off in like a vine, you can always use 11-0 seed beads before and after as well. There we have another little leaf. And right next to this leaf, I'm going to put another one of my flowers. So I'm going to go in right away and let's add, looking at it kind of laying here, I'm going to add something with a little bit more kind of a pop here. I'll actually add a crystal bicone just for a little brightness. Then my 8. Then we'll add another one of this purpley color. And go. So I'm going to continue through this whole strand here, adding on leaves in between each one of my flowers. So my garden is growing as I use that leaf technique. And again, all the different techniques for each strand you can combine together as well too. I've added 2 11-0 seed beads on at the end, and this strand is about equal in length to the first strand. I do want these to be clustered up. I'm going to go back to the original side here, And I'm going to sew through the 8-0 seed bead. From here, I'm going to sew through the center of my clasp. And I'm going to sew back down through that 8-0 and then take my needle and thread through the entirety of that first strand of beads. When you bring your thread and needle out that first strand of beads, then we're going to reinforce on the opposite side where that original loop is. And see how it has a little bit of extra thread showing here. I want to make sure I don't have any extra thread showing on strand 1 or strand 2. Feed your thread and needle the whole way back through the project. Go through the 8-0, loop through the clasp, back through the opposite strand. When I go through the strand with the leaves, you do not need to string through the leaves. You're just doing all the seed beads, and then we'll get back, go through this loop one more time, and tie off our thread end before we start on our third, fourth, fifth, and sixth strands. Here I am now back to the end. I've gone through the clasp. I'm just going to move that stop bead off a little bit here. Pull that down, tie one knot, tie another knot. With the thread that's still on the needle, I'm going to then go back into the 8-0 seed bead and back down through that primary side since I was coming out the secondary side. I'm going to give a really nice tight pull here, because what that's going to do is pull that knot almost into the interior of the 8-0 seed bead. Take my thread zap or my thread burner, burn off the thread end close to the project here at the end, and then burn off this one down here close to there as well. Now, I'm going to do another thing of thread and needles, and we're going to get ready to do some of our exterior strands. So time for our next strand and our next style. I have on my thread and needle here a stop bead, followed by 2 of my 11-0s, which I will loop up through one of the 8-0 seed beads as I come back through. 1 8, and then I have 2 of my 11-0s in the brighter silver metallic color. And I'm going to start using more of these flower caps on these strands. So the flower caps have the holes that go through the center of them. I used them a little bit on the first one, but now I'm going to use them on this whole strand. So this strand's just going to be basically flower caps, and we're going to put some of the silver beads on underneath the flowers just to give a little bit of a color pop of that silver. So I have the 2 11-0 seed beads on. Then I'm going to add in 1 of my silver beads. Then I'm going to add in 1 of my bead caps here. I'm going to go up through the back of it, come out through that center. Add another one of the beads onto the front here. It's kind of up to you what color you want to add. I'll add that green color. Come back down through the 11-0 seed bead, or sorry, the flower cap, not the 11-0 seed bead here, through the silver bead, through 1 and 2 11-0s. And what this is going to do is create a little fringe that sits up that it almost looks like morning glories coming out to play. From here, an 8-0 seed bead goes on. Then we're going to do 1 11, 2 11s to space it out, another 8-0, and then repeat. 2 of my metallic, then 1 of my silver beads to sit behind my little flower caps, then a flower cap, 1 of my 11-0s in the middle, back down through the flower cap, through the silver, through the 2 11-0s, and start again. If you want to, you can even put some of the yellow crystals in between. If you notice that you have a gap like this in thread, pull up on the bead that sits in between, or on top of the cap rather, and just give a nice tight pull. From here then again, add another 8-0 seed bead. And in between this time, I'm going to add 1 of those yellow crystals. So I'm going to do 1 8, 1 of my 11s in the silver line, 1 crystal in that bright gold just to give a pop, 1 8-0, or sorry, 1 11-0 in the silver lined, 1 8-0, oops. And now I'm ready to once again do my little flower. So again, 2 of the brighter greens, followed by one of my little silver rondelles. This is a 2mm rondelle, followed by another one of the flower caps. Pick at random. Has that nice orange hue, bright green in the middle. Back down through the cap, not the 11-0 that sits on the top. The silver bead underneath, the 2 11s after, and on to the next. So I'm just going to repeat this little vine the whole way along the piece, and that'll get attached to the bottom and have a different look and a different style for this strand. This side here, just because it's a little bit hard to know the exact fit because of the way that it's bending, I decided to go through that 3rd strand back up right away. Went up and out after the last 11-0 seed bead, added my 8, came down here. I'm going to pull off that stop bead and tie the thread into a knot away from the end here. But I'm going to keep that thread end on because I still want that when I come back after doing my 4th strand of beads. And my 4th strand of beads is going to be very, very simple. You want to also make sure lengthwise you're still good, you're still golden, it looks great. We still have an empty loop here, and I'm making sure that when I bring my bracelet back together that my clasp is sitting correctly. This next strand, I'm going bold and lots of flowers. So this one is going to be a majority of our bigger flowers because I have a ton in my collection, which is great that you have this. And all we're going to do is loop some of the seed beads around the flowers just for a change up. So again, I like that each strand is a little bit different. Coming out the end here, I'm going to add 2 of my 11-0s. I like to do that just to give a little bit of space here. And what we're going to do is utilize that 8-0 seed bead as well as the 11-0s, and we're going to wrap around some of our flowers. So we're going to kind of make it again look a little bit viney. I'm going to bring some color here right at the end. So let's start with one of these purple pops here. Oops, sorry, I want to do an 8-0 before. Get my purple to pop right there. Grab an 8-0 after. Grab 2 11s to separate. 8-0. Then what I'm going to do is go around one of my flowers. So I'm going to pick my next flower, which I'll do this pretty pink one here. And we are going to wrap around this pretty pink flower. So what do I mean by that? And we can wrap around bead caps, we can wrap around anything. I'm going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, gather up my bead knot, 5, 6, 7 beads, whatever will fit along the piece in the project. Again, just to get it that kind of wrapped look. I'll even do different colored beads that are over here. So I have 10 that I'm going to put on. You can put a leaf on here if you want as well. And then I'm going to run back through that bead, which is going to make it look like the green bead is just a vine kind of laying over top of the seed bead, or laying over top of the check glass bead. From here, every other bead I'm going to do that with. So we're going to do 2 of our 11-0s between each of our beads. Next one here will not have the vine going around it. So the next one will not have the vine. It's just one of the beads. And let's bring in a fun solid color bead here. And again, 8-0 goes on. Keeping this nice and chunky. 2 of my 11-0s go in between. Once I have those 2 11-0s on, grab an 8. And then our next bead will have that vine going through. Like I need a little bit more of that purple there in the middle. You can see how the colors are just getting picked. And then from here, I'm going to do my brighter silver in the metallic. That one was the same size bead that I know, so I know about 10 beads go around. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 beads on my thread and needle. And we're going to loop back around. Oop, I forgot my 8-0. That's okay. We'll put it on after. And see, that looks like kind of a vine going around my little flowers. 8-0s goes on, followed again by 2 11s, and then we repeat. Once this gets repeated, we're going to come down to the end through that first loop that sits at the bottom, sharing the 8-0, going through the loop, coming back through the strand, tying it off, and then we'll get ready for strands 5 and 6. This next strand here, we are going to start out the same way. So It is the open loop still that we have on the clasp. We're going to do the same thing kind of that we did dropping down here, but we are going to do it as a loop and kind of not miss a beat. So we are going to loop them around. So I have on my clasp here, or my stop bead, my 2 11s, my 1 8. I'm going to do a 1 and 2 and 3 of my 11 seed beads. Put on one of my drops here. Then I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3 seed beads as well, and go back through that 11, or sorry, that 8. So see how it just kind of sits on the exterior? And you can do however many seed beads you need. You can do 4, you can do 3, you can do 2, you can do it around some of the bigger beads, let them drop down. Just gonna have fun playing around with the pattern. 3 11s, 1 8-0, 1, 2, 3, 4 of my 11s, 5 of my 11s, grab another one of my beads here, put it on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back through that 8-0 seed bead. And you have loop-de-loops. So now they all look like they're kind of hanging out there, looping around the piece. Make sure when you do it, kind of push your beads down so you don't see any extra threads showing in your project here. And this is just my stop bead pushing up towards it. And then on to the next one. If you want to, you can put a flower in between each. You can have these hanging down as fringe, just liking to show some options for the different ways that you can do the vines for this bracelet. This last strand that I would do, I'm just going to simple string it since we already have a lot going on. And really what I'm going to concentrate on this one is color. I want some more of that silver in there from the silver balls from the original strand, a little bit more of the yellow coming in at different strands as well too. So really what I'm looking for here is that color pop going on. And I want to lay it out. A good advice is to kind of pick up your bracelet, jiggle it a little bit, and then start to lay this down on top. And I'm going to say, okay, really, where do I want this? When I get to here, I want that bead. When I get over here, I don't have a dark bead, so I'll put that dark bead kind of there near the end. When I get here, I can bring in some of that color. So you start looking at the piece and determining where and how you want to use the color. And we have these silver rounds that I'm going to take advantage of, and really no pattern. I started out with a bead cap along with a round 4 millimeter and an 11 followed by, or an 8 followed by an 11. I'm going to bring in this blue bead here, and I'm going to look and see, okay, what other color do I want here? Probably want a red somewhere in the middle there. So I'm going to start to put my pieces basically around where I want them to string. A little bit more yellow pop there, and be a little bit more intentional with the beads and where I'm putting them for this last strand to tie them all together. So again, we're just straight beading with this one here. I'm doing bead caps even along the sides of the actual flower beads in the collection. And what's fun is I have so many more beads still that I can use from this collection, like so many more beads, and going in and creating some of these color movements and color ways using all of these different beads are really fun. You can do a great job too of getting rid of a lot of the beads in your bead stash with some of these projects and some of these design ideas, and just really kind of having fun pulling in all the colors and getting them moving along. Simple, strong, really not a ton of technique involved in any of these here. So this should be not limiting whatsoever. And just going right along and saying, this needs a little color here, needs a little pop there, needs a little bit here, and just continuing to bead along the piece. Here's where I was going to put that pink one. Look at that pink guy in there with the green on either side. That's really going to be a focal point. I'm even going to put a green on the other side. Then I'm going to put an 8 followed by one of my yellow. So just see how we're kind of popping in that end there and that color. Remember, I wanted to get a red one in here. Prior to the red, I'm going to go in and really make it stand out with one of these fiery bead caps on either side of the piece. So just string along, adding in that color, looping through the 8-0 on the opposite side, and getting this viney bracelet completed. Once again, here at the end, all you're going to do is tie those loops off right underneath that 8-0 seed bead. Go in there, tuck one of those down if you want to. There's so much going on with this bracelet. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to burn those thread edges down flat towards the project. Could have probably gotten them a little bit closer there. And then burn them flush towards the project. I'm going to go back into the piece and make sure anywhere else at the ends, if I need to, I have that tied off. And you can see how pretty this garden bracelet is on. It's going to really be a fun summer kind of cha-cha bracelet. You don't need to make 6 strands. You can make 3 strands. You can make 2 strands. You really can have fun playing around and making it whatever you want with whatever beads. If you want to make it a nautical theme, we have a ton of nautical beads in our collections as well too. So lots of different things, lots of different collections to use to make these fun multi-strand vine bracelets. Thanks so much for watching this growing vine bracelet. Remember, you can do this with all kinds of different beads and all kinds of different collections. If you do need any of those or want to check them out, go ahead and look below the video in the description. We'll put a link there to get back to our site so you can check out the multitudes of bead collections with these beautiful check beads that we have to create. Can't wait to see your bracelets for your growing vine, whatever you're going to grow on it, in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads, and stay tuned, Potomac Beaders, for more inspirational designs.